Okay, so it's been a while, not really that long, since I did a video talking about the Seattle housing market and how, I was kind of discussing, and I have talked about at many different points, is there a bubble? Because, I remember back last year, people were asking, is there a bubble that's about to burst? And to be honest with you, the slowdown started to happen towards the end of last year, went over into this year, and I said, I'm not going to say there's a bubble until there's a few more months because you're entering into a time of year when people don't buy homes. It's during the holidays, it's the colder months. Here, around that time, it rains a lot, so a lot of people tend to not go and actually look at homes, even though that's probably a better time to look for homes when it is actually raining. You can look at a lot of different things that maybe an inspector won't even be able to find, such as leaks and things like that. We looked at homes and found leaks in the roof, and we saw a stream of water coming down in one of the houses, and we would have never known that because the person selling that home was desperate. And so they were painting right there where that spot was, and you really would not have noticed it. You just wouldn't have paid attention to it until it actually rained, and that rain bust through the little bit of plaster that they had, and it was just a mess. But anyway, that's not what this video is about. It's about Seattle and their housing prices, and really this entire region. Seattle's prices just plunged, and they fell pretty hard, pretty fast, and had done so for several months. And a lot of people were saying now's the time to buy. The prices here were overinflated, I will say that. And you're seeing the prices start to drop, and now they're starting to level, right? Now, in some areas of Seattle, the prices are going up really fast. Some areas are leveling out, and then there's some that are still falling, but not as fast as they were. And it's pretty much due to many different factors, right? Weather's starting to get a little bit better. Income tax season is here. Part of the whole correction is done, kind of. Basically saying, this is what the market can truly support. In fact, Seattle actually has about 2 months worth of housing stock supply. So not bad. Not too bad. Now, in Tacoma, Pierce County, different story. Here I had stated that my home prices finally start to go down about 2 months ago. But we're not talking a lot. It's not like up in Seattle where prices dropped 160,000. Here, homes typically only dropped a few thousand. I think that our home dropped maybe at the most 10,000, right? At the most. And so the drop in this area has happened, but it's not as fast and it's not as deep and it's not as great as what it was up in Seattle. I can't talk. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. I can't sleep, so I thought I would just do a video, right? So now we're looking at the prices in Tacoma starting to tick back up again, and they're starting to correct themselves. So it went from, just looking at our home to give a better example, it went from us basically being, rising and actually gaining 100,000 to losing $1,000, then losing 2,000, and there was where it was 2,200, and then it's now at $600 is what it actually lost in value. But what it's showing you is basically it went up in terms of the value, in terms of where it was. We had lost, I don't know, like I said, 10,000. But it's not in the big numbers anymore. It's not like, $2,000 drop in value like it was doing. It's now only 600. So what it's telling me, and this is an area here where prices take a while to reflect. If you go to certain parts of Tacoma, they feel the price wave instantly, more so than out here. In this general area, even though when prices are dropping every place else, we're the last one to catch up. And then when prices go up, we're the last ones for it to go up. But probably next month, April or so, will be up in the positives again. Now, keep in mind, all of this is still profit. We're only losing on profit, not the true value of what we paid into the home. So we're just losing off for true profit. But I think that what you're going to see is a much larger climb. Homes here now are starting to gain back in their value because of a few different things that are happening. Now, Amazon plays a small piece into this puzzle. Amazon is actually really expanding in Bellevue. If anyone's going to experience high prices right now, it's going to be Bellevue. Well, given the fact that they've kind of committed to adding 25,000 jobs up there, that's kind of the rumor, that gives a lot of folks an idea as to what it's going to do to this region. So a lot of the real estate folks and investors and all of that kind of look at this as, okay, they're recommitting. So you're going to start seeing prices go back up because that helps. But there's other key things that are going on in the region too that is leading to a lot of positive growth. Tacoma is still going to be a lot cheaper than Seattle and Bellevue. I mean, Bellevue is the most expensive when we're talking about these smaller cities. There's Bellevue, Seattle, and then Tacoma, right? When you look at those three, Tacoma's going to be a lot cheaper. It's even going to be cheaper than some of the suburbs that are surrounding us. So the price here, you're still going to be able to get a house for about $330, but that's much more than what it was back in the day. Remember, go back 2 years ago, I think, or 2.5 years ago, $180,000 would get you a pretty good house in Tacoma. Now, not so much. So now it's in the threes. Up in Seattle, instead of being in the sevens, you probably would do well with a house that's probably in the sixes or the fives, right? So the home prices there are still very strong. Now, Snohomish County up by Everett, prices are a little bit more than what they're going to be down here as well. That's a little bit more attractive area up there than it is down here. It also doesn't hurt that Boeing is up there too, as well as a lot of different things. So you're going to be paying in the fours up there. Down here, threes, middle threes to lower threes. You're going to be paying that for a home, and it's going to look pretty good. So I think the correction is done, and I think that prices are pretty much going to stay kind of where they are. You're not going to see, maybe, but I doubt it, you're not going to see massive spikes like what we saw last year of where home prices were just leapfrogging in Seattle. Here it was just a steady climb, and I think that's going to continue, and I think you're going to see that in Seattle. They're not growing as fast. I think they're growing at like 2% on their values. Down here it's like 5 point something percent. In Olympia it's growing a little bit closer to 6% in growth. So the home prices in Olympia are still cheaper than they are in Tacoma, for example, but we're only talking a matter of $20,000, $30,000 difference, if that, right, on average. So you're starting to see values down south go up. It used to be, again, that just 2 years ago, Olympia prices were very, very cheap. Very cheap. You can still find good deals, don't get me wrong, and it depends where you're going down there in Thurston County. It depends. Some areas are going to be by far cheaper, but prices are starting to go back up again, and it seems like now we're seeing a whole new change in terms of just price values. Now, when it comes to rentals, because a lot of people have asked about rentals, and that's typically people who are moving here, they go right into the rental market. Rentals in Tacoma are going to be expensive. Much more so than a home. When we're talking about more bang for your buck, it used to be apartments would be the best bet. Even when you look at Seattle, apartments are the best bet because the home prices are so expensive. Here, it's kind of opposite now. Now, a home is going to be your better bet in terms of just affordability, typically. Apartments are becoming much more expensive, and here's the reason why. Downtown Tacoma is really propelling the South Sound. When you look at the South Sound, Tacoma, of course, obviously is going to run everything because it's the South Sound. It's the biggest city. But downtown is really controlling a lot of the prices in this area. And when you have all of the projects that are being developed, a lot of them are apartments, they're brand new. So because they're brand new, even though they're going to be basic, they're going to take a lot more money. So when you go and rent those, it's going to be much more money than some of the things that are online. If you just look, for example, the town center, for example, they're working on that. That project's almost, the first part of that building is almost done. They've actually started putting up the whole apartment part of that. When you look at what Cause Development has done, they've completed one building, another building is probably around 45% complete, and then they're going to put one in Hilltop. That's going to happen, that's going to break ground later this year. If you look at the apartments that have been completed on the Brewery Block area, which I think some of those are going to be completed soon if they haven't been already, those are brand new. They're going to be adding a whole lot more to the list. So there's other projects that are being developed. All of those apartments, if you look, Tracks, which is going to be another apartment development over in the Dome District, all of these are brand new. And because they're brand new, they're going to be much more expensive. And when you are already working with a very tight market, where people are really trying to move in. The problem here is opposite of Seattle. In Seattle, there's so many apartments that are just sitting that they don't know what to do with. Here, there's not enough apartments for people to move into. People still can't afford apartments up in Seattle. Don't get me wrong, it's still very pricey, and it's much more expensive to get an apartment up there than it will be down here. But it's still very expensive here. More so than it would be for a home. You're going to get more bang for your buck, as I said, with an apartment. So because you have all these folks now rushing down to Tacoma, given the fact that we've added a lot of cultural amenities and a lot of different things that are coming in the pipeline that are giving people a second chance to look at Tacoma, the apartment market is getting very, very small. They're growing it, but it's very small. We still don't have large buildings of scale yet in terms of apartment buildings. So because of that, we're relying strictly on these little mid-rises that have anywhere from 50 to 200 units. Well, that's great, but it doesn't solve the mass, the rush of people that are coming in. So expect, and of course you know the whole supply-demand thing, right? So expect for the prices here in Tacoma as far as the apartments to keep going up pretty fast. Probably this summer you're going to see that happen because, again, there's just so many people coming in that there's not enough supply. When it comes to the homes, we have less than what Seattle does in terms of what's on the market. Things here go quick still. We still have bidding wars here that doesn't happen up in Seattle now. We have situations where, you don't have as many cash-only offers. Up in Seattle, they're holding on to their properties. A lot of people who are going to sell or wanting to sell are just holding on to their properties, whereas down here, people are selling. We have much more to work with down here. There's much more lateral, prices can go up to $400,000. It's still the cheapest thing around. You know what I mean? Like, it's still cheaper than, Fedway or, definitely Mercer Island or any place. It's just going to be cheaper here. Olympia, it's cheaper, but you're going to have to travel a lot farther. Olympia is 32 miles from Tacoma, and Tacoma's about 32 miles from Seattle. So unless you're willing to do a 64-mile journey going one way and 64 miles back along I-5, that kind of keeps Olympia in a small lump sum for a few people. Anyhow, let me know what you think. I think that basically the whole bubble thing is not going to happen. I think that we're pretty much out of that. It's hard to say until we have a few more months of where there's positive growth in terms of just the prices and the demand and all of that. A few more months of that, and I think that we're pretty much clear. I think everything was just a correction. It looked like it was a bubble that was about to be busted. When you look at Seattle still, there's so many apartments that are just sitting. And there's so many that's being developed. There's so many that's on the drawing board. And these are massive buildings. But they feel that they're going to be able to fill those in. I don't necessarily think it's a bubble just yet. We'll see what happens this summer. But anyhow, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, I will see you. Take care.